Guten Morgen, Sabah El-Kheer, good morning, in however way you say it. Welcome to my hotel room in Ocean View, Santa Monica, right by the Pacific Ocean. What MMA channel on YouTube right now is absolutely doing this? Filming an MMA related content in front of an ocean. Not many can say that they're doing that. So here's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. I actually wanted to talk about various group of things in terms of MMA, in terms of politics, in terms of what's going on in the current state of combat sports. I'll tell you this right now, right? So yesterday, I read somewhere, actually I didn't read anything at all. I just saw some sort of like video clip of Jesse on Fire talking about how the FDA was coming after KSI and Logan Paul. Now, to anyone's surprise, is that really shocking? Not really, because does Logan Paul or KSI strike you as somebody that would, let's say, go out and try to make a quick buck on people in terms of doing things unethically, on top of the fact that they don't really care about the implications of other people's health or maybe even their own, let alone their own family members, right? Like, you got to understand what kind of people these are. But in reality, these are the type of people that you're going to run across in the world of YouTube, in the world of entertainment, and in particular, the world of mixed martial arts. Now, oftentimes, there's a lot of people out there that go out and say that there's some of the biggest scumbags in mixed martial arts, right? You often hear Luke Thomas say that some of the worst people in mixed martial arts, some of the worst people that he's ever ran across was in mixed martial arts. And this is coming from a guy who used to write papers for Monsanto or some other companies out there that were tied with some Washington, D.C. Affiliates in terms of like lobbying, in terms of lobbying like laws that are unethical or things of that nature, right? And then you have somebody like MMA Guru, who's a YouTube star in his own right. And you know what? I wanted to talk about him in particular, right? Because lately, every time this guy is on YouTube, right? Everything that this guy says, he says things like that are, how do I say this? I mean, you could say that the guy is biased, but at the same time, he's also very objective. And what do I mean by that? Well, I think the reality is that we all have a little bit of that in us, in terms of, yes, we can be biased in terms of, okay, we have certain guys that we're going to root for, but then we also have this aspect of being, how do I say this, being for our own team, but then also calling it what it is, right? In terms of like, okay, you know what? This guy did great in the fight. You can't deny that. This guy has great takedown defense. You can't deny that about him. This guy has great boxing. You can't deny that about him. Just don't. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, I just heard somebody go out and yell some random stuff over here. But welcome to Santa Monica, right? I mean, as beautiful as it is, there's just random things that go on here. And I mean, look, here's another thing. There's a huge homeless population that comes about in Santa Monica. At the same time, you got to think, right? If you're going to be homeless anywhere in the world, why not have an ocean beachfront in front of you, right? And yeah, so, but that's neither here or there. But back to MMA Guru. The guy has a bit of some biasness in terms of like every time, let's say, right now with the Dricus and the Israel Adesanya fight. Now, look, am I a fan of Israel Adesanya or Dricus du Plessis? Not more than the next guy, right? In terms of if you're not a Nigerian, if you're not a South African, I'm neither here or there with any of those two. But he seems to have this weird inclination to try to somehow go after somebody like, I don't know, Adesanya for using the N-word, or somehow trying to incite this whole fight. into what it is. Now, look, we all, if you know MMA Guru, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? I'm not going to go into specifics of what it is that he does, but you can tell that he's got a lot of racial undertones in the way that he goes about things. And the kid is really young. He doesn't really understand or have any experience with any light, with anything in life. And you know what? Here's the thing. If I'm wrong about that, he can go out and try to prove that. But the problem is, you're never going to see a guy like this, for example, film outside of London, right? He lives in London, but doesn't film anything outside of his studio. Unlike this, look at this. Anywhere that I go, I'm going to film exactly where I'm at, and then I'm going to talk about MMA, whether it's at Disneyland, whether it's at Santa Monica, whether it's in the border of Mexico or San Diego, or whether it's in New York, where I filmed, the Jake Paul versus Rahman fight, which unfortunately got deleted in the conference call page that I did in Facebook. But nonetheless, I'm going to give you a variation of things, right? This guy, all he's going to do is he's going to put his stupid face in front of the camera and then just say a whole bunch of things in his mom's basement or in a studio or wherever the hell he's at, right? What kind of YouTube channel is that, first and foremost, right? I mean, there's no variation. It's just the same thing. But here's the thing. I want you to understand, I'm not here to hate on MMA Guru in any way. Matter of fact, I listen to the guy's show, and I still listen to the guy's show. I wouldn't mind getting into a fight with MMA Guru, whether it be a sanction or a street fight for that matter. The bottom line is, I'm just calling out anything that he does in terms of what, can be reprehensible, in terms of the way that he, goes about, talking about the Dagestanis, saying that, oh, they're inbreds or this and that. Now, look, here's the thing. Is there some truth to that? I mean, maybe, right? But I don't know, man. I just don't like the guy, right? I mean, I like him as an MMA content creator, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to like him as a person. It doesn't mean he's the type of person that I would ever hang out with but matter of fact, I don't think the guy even goes out and hangs out with anybody, right? I mean, yeah, he does shows with, let's say, the likes of, what is that guy's name? Tim Welsh, the coach of Sean O'Malley. He's gone in his podcast. He's done things with Jesse on Fire. He's done things with the likes of, I don't know, other people. I guess you're right. It's only Jesse on Fire and Tim Welsh and Sean O'Malley. But nonetheless, the guy just talks a whole lot of crap about other fighters, but has never really competed. And here's the thing, right? Do you really need to compete in order for you to talk about MMA or for you to have an MMA channel? I don't think so. Does it help? If you do, absolutely it does. Does it make you understand a little bit better about the lactic acid and the tiredness that goes into these fights and the struggles of, let's say, making weight? Because, look, let's say if a fighter misses weight, right? It'd probably be a little bit easier to, I guess, slag him off and say, this guy's not professional, he's not this, he's not that, when maybe you don't understand the underlying issues that this guy may have going on in his life, or his physicality, or maybe some underlying illness you may not know about. Nonetheless, the guy talks about Michael Bisping. He makes fun of his eye. He goes after Dan Hardy. And look, here's the thing. Let's take this with a grain of salt, okay? Because at the end of the day, this is all entertainment, right? But if you want to talk reality, the reality of things is that the guy will never become face-to-face with anybody in the MMA circles or in the MMA media or in the sphere of that industry. He's never going to do that. Why? Because he's controversial, he says what he wants, and that's cool. That's all right. And look, again, I'm not using this in any way to say that I hate MMA Guru as a channel. I think he's great. I think he's fantastic. I think he's got great social IQ. I think he's got great timing. I think he's very entertaining. I think he's very funny and witty in the way that he comes up with impressions and things of that nature. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to call the guy out, right? I'm not doing anything different than what he does in his channel in terms of, you know what, he may have an inclination towards British fighters in that regard, but at the same time, he'll also go slag them off if need be. For example, Darren Till, right? I mean, Darren Till is probably one of the last hope for UK MMA at the time when he was in his prime. But then when he started falling off, obviously, he gave him, you know, the rightful criticisms that he deserved. Well, speaking of rightful criticisms, right? I don't think anybody has ever really said anything about Logan Paul or KSI in terms of the prime drinks, right? I don't know if anybody has ever really called them out on the issues that they may have had with the drinks or what kind of ingredients they put in there. But nonetheless, I mean, the FDA is going after them for what they're doing. And you got to think to yourself, right? If the FDA is coming after you, you got to think there's really something wrong with your drink. Now, at the same time, what does that imply in terms of their relationship with the UFC and what they're going to do with their sponsorships? What about Arsenal FC, the soccer team in London that's sponsoring them? What is the implication on these things and what's going to happen? And look, full disclosure, I haven't been really reading up on anything about this particular matter at hand, but I think there's something interesting and fascinating about this story in terms of trying to understand ethics, in terms of trying to understand the type of characters that you see on YouTube and the type of things that they put out there. Nonetheless, I gotta say that I'm not surprised, because you gotta think, what kind of person is Logan Paul? What kind of person is KSI? First of all, here's the thing, right? If you guys don't know, and you're not in that part of the sphere of YouTube and influencers and things of that nature, you may not know this, but KSI and Logan Paul once fought each other. And by the way, they're the reasons why this whole YouTube boxing thing is where it's at. But nonetheless, it's so funny that these guys are like in this situation where they're all buddies with each other and they're making business deals with each other and things of that nature, but yet these guys were saying the most awful things to each other. Now look, everyone's different, right? Let bygones be bygones. Let he who casts without sin, or something to that effect. You know exactly what I'm saying. The bottom line is, it's just weird to me that these two guys are friends with the kind of history that they have, the way that they talked about each other's mom, the way that they talked about each other's relationships with the type of people that they were with, the type of things that they would say to each other. Now look, I understand in the UK there's a banter culture that KSI comes from, and with Logan Paul, this is something that he's used to. Him and his brother have had public beef even before they were the type of stars that they are now in the mainstream world, right? When they were just popular within the influencer world. Nonetheless, it's hilarious to me. But at the same time, it kind of shows you the kind of character they are, right? If they know that they're going to make money off of each other, they're going to do it. They have no ethics or borders in that aspect. Now, also, it's worth noting, Logan Paul is sort of an atheist in that kind of regard, right? Now, I don't know about you. I don't know how you feel about, other people's beliefs or how they go about things. Me personally, I just would never trust anybody who's an atheist whatsoever, right? And here's the thing about MMA Guru. What's interesting about him is, at least there's a part of him that sort of believes in God, although at the same time, he does try to slag off Muslims. He does try to talk bad about us. He does try to say a lot of these undertones that are xenophobic and things of that nature. But I understand. I get it. He probably comes from a conservative English family. And, this is the way that he grew up. This is the way that he thinks. But don't get me wrong. He's an entertaining guy. But just because I find you entertaining, it doesn't mean that I wouldn't punch you in the face. Okay? Now, would I punch MMA Guru in the face if I saw him in person? It depends. It depends how he would go about things. If he went about things the gentleman way and tried to be cordial and try to have, a normal conversation, why not, right? But if he tried to, I don't know, for whatever reason, said something disrespectful, of course, I'm going to handle him just like how I would handle any man that would come at you in that type of way. But nonetheless, here's a couple of things that I really don't like about the way he says things, right? He says a lot of things in a very slick way to where you can't really ban him, or you can't really say, oh, you know what? This is what he said, or this is what he did. He just says it in a very clever way where he kind of disguises a lot of his inner racism. Now, look, is he racist in any kind of way? I don't know. That, you know what? Here's the thing: you don't really know enough about the guy to really judge him. And here's the thing: the guy's a coward. Let me just flat out say it. I mean, he says that he doesn't say his real name because of the fact that, like, okay, well, he's in the UK and they have these hate speech laws, and if they ever come after him, then somehow he could just toss it up as like, well, I'm a character or this and that. Hey, look, what it is you're a coward. I mean, what can you really say about that? I mean, is that really a surprise to anybody that you hide behind a name, that you don't tell anybody your name? You say that you're a Taekwondo competitor, but yet you've never showed any medals or what you've done or anything like that. So it's like, okay, I get it. He's great at his breakdowns. And again, I'm not saying anything that isn't real about the guy. But the bottom line is, the guy is a fake, he's a fraud, and he's got a great MMA channel, and maybe sometimes being a fake and a fraud is what really gets you to the top. Just like Logan Paul and KSI. Look, you gotta think, right? Like, what are these guys famous for? I mean, yes, they box. Logan Paul does WWE. KSI boxes. He's done great. He's now being a real professional boxer, right? For whatever that's worth. You can't say that same thing about Jake Paul, really, can you? Right? I mean, he's beaten MMA fighters, but not boxers per se. KSI has done that. But nonetheless, these guys come from this world of YouTube where, hey guys, come click and subscribe. Everything has to be, high tone. Everything has to be, high energy all the time, or this and that. And even Jake Paul himself said something to the effect where, he just thought that this was exhausting, trying to be somebody that he's not. And that's what these guys essentially are. They're trying to be something that they're not. And you can't blame them. This is the world of YouTube. This is just what you do. This is just the circumstances of the business in terms of how you go about things and how you get attention, how you get clicks and views. And everything has to be about timing. Everything has to be about the algorithm or this and that. Look, this is one thing I wanted to tell you guys. Man, who cares, right? There's plenty of times where I've debated myself, okay, should I post this video or should I wait later, or should I do this at this time? Should I do a premiere? Should I do, do it at midnight? Should I do it at this time when people are getting off work? I just realized, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do my own thing, not really care about, how it gets views or this and that. And I'm just going to let the chips fall as it may. Because all these other guys, I think they've already figured out and understood what kind of algorithm gets you a certain views and when to post and when to do it or this and that. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to come here, I'm going to speak my mind, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make the kind of content that I want. And right now, I just press play on this and I'm thinking, what kind of content am I going to make out of this? Well, I was thinking, okay, these are a couple of things that's on my mind. MMA Guru, the fact that he's trying to say a lot of these racial undertones and he's trying to be slick about it, the fact that he doesn't reveal his real name, the fact that he doesn't film anywhere interesting, he's only filming in a shed in his house, never goes outside, never does anything. I just figured, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go film wherever I'm at. I'm going to talk about MMA. I'm going to talk about boxing. I'm not going to limit myself to this. And you know what? Maybe in the next video, maybe I'll just talk about politics. But nonetheless, you got to think, these other guys, they're not doing that. They have a plan. They want to do this. They want to do that. They want to be like I don't know, they want to have the right views, so they have to like film it at a certain time or all this other nonsense, right? But here's something you got to understand. A lot of this is not real, right? A lot of this is just selling, and maybe even part of what I'm doing right now is selling. But nonetheless, you have to understand that's just the type of people you're going to run across in this business of YouTube influencers, MMA, and all that. And you know what? I don't know what it is with MMA Guru. He's always coming after Ali Abdelaziz. I never really understood why that is, right? And I think the reason why is because I think he just has a biasness against the Dagestani fighters, which is understandable, because here's the thing. He believes that the Dagestani fighters, for one reason or another, he finds them boring, right? But the reality is this is what the sport is. Now, was George St. Pierre boring when he was a decision machine coming up in his career? The way that he was, just fighting methodically, fighting very careful, fighting to not lose, fighting to not get knocked out. No one ever really said anything about him, but there's a certain marketing, there's a certain demographics of people that follow you that sort of affect that. George St. Pierre, let's just call it what it is. The guy was this poster boy that was perfect for the UFC because he was well-spoken, he was a gentleman, he was, very respectful in the way that he approaches things. Right, so this is marketable in that way, and then he's French-Canadian. He speaks French, and then he has Canada that backs him up as a fan base, which is a big market for the UFC in their earlier days. But then with the Dagestanis, you could say that it's a little bit harder because they don't speak English. Yes, they have a Russian-based audience that follows and watches them, but at the same time, they're not going to go out there and do outrageous things or do crazy things that's not necessary or not really called for. But either way, if they have the right opponent, they have the right dance partners, like what happened with Khabib and Conor McGregor, it's a little bit different, right? Yes, they're going to be a little bit entertaining because then it becomes this clash of cultures, this clash of differences of ideas and things of that nature. But I just think, yeah, man, look, I think there's a biasness that MMA Guru has, and I just don't think anybody really calls him out on that. I mean, maybe some people do. Obviously, Dan Hardy does, but then for whatever reason, Dan Hardy deleted a video regarding MMA Guru, right? He did this thing with Mark Goddard where he was analyzing things that MMA Guru was talking about because of this early stoppage that Colby Covington received from the first Kamaru Usman fight, which, by the way, was refereed by Mark Goddard. And then Mark Goddard offered MMA Guru to do an MMA referee seminar, of which MMA Guru refused. Why did he refuse? Because guess what? The guy is a hermit. He stays in his house and doesn't really do anything or say anything other than like nonsense, other than biased nonsense at times. And again, I'm not saying this out of hate. I'm not saying this out of animosity towards a guy. I like his channel. His channel is great. But it doesn't mean that just because I like your channel that I'm not going to punch you in the face, right? It doesn't mean that I'm not going to criticize you or call you out on the things that you say or call you out on the things that you do, right? Because I'm certainly going to do that. And why? Because I'm going to give you the most objective point of view in the best way that I know how, right? And a lot of guys are just not going to do that. So I don't know what's going to happen with Logan Paul or KSI, but it wouldn't surprise me if this is just going to fall flat on their face, right? I mean, look, could this be the beginning of the downfall of KSI and Logan Paul? Possibly, right? I mean, obviously, Logan Paul dodged a bullet back in 2017 after he got canceled, got his career revived after a boxing match with KSI, and that was that right afterwards, right? But again, maybe this could be the downfall of his entire career. But who knows? Either way, I think there's a lot of interesting things going on in the world of combat sports right now. And not just in the world of combat sports, but the personalities that are involved in it. How about the Dricus Duplessis versus Israel Adesanya fight? Now, the minute that this fight gets signed and the minute that they start doing a press conference, oh my goodness, this is going to be an absolute banger of a thing. But you know what? I'm probably going to make a separate video on this, and I'm probably going to do that right about now.